Vienna is a city that remembers being an empire. When you first see it through street view, the weight of history is visible everywhere. Grand buildings, palaces, museums. The architecture doesn't apologize, it announces, it declares that important things happened here, important people lived here. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was centered in Vienna. For over 600 years, the Habsburgs ruled from Vienna. They built palaces, they commissioned art, they created a culture that became the culture of all of Europe. Then the empire ended. In 1918, after World War I, the empire collapsed. Vienna went from being the capital of an empire to being the capital of a small, landlocked country. That transformation is still visible. The palaces remain, the culture remains, the memory remains, but the power is gone. The Stephansdom rises up in the center. St. Stephen's Cathedral, Gothic, built over centuries. The spire is 137 meters tall. You can see it from almost anywhere in Vienna. It anchors the city. It's been there since the 1100s, surviving wars, surviving occupation, surviving the transition from empire to republic. The Stephansplatz, the square around the cathedral, is where Vienna gathers. People, musicians, tourists, locals. The square is always busy, always alive. Street musicians play classical music. That's Vienna. Even the street musicians play Beethoven. The Hofburg Palace sprawls across blocks. This was the winter residence of the Habsburgs, the seat of power, the center of an empire. Now it's a museum. You can walk through the rooms where emperors made decisions that shaped Europe. The Neue Burg, the new palace, is part of it. Built in the 1800s, still claiming grandeur even though the empire was already declining. Schönbrunn Palace is the summer residence. Outside the city center, massive, over 1,000 rooms, built to outdo Versailles. Almost did. The gardens are formal, precise, showing human control over nature. Marie Theresia lived here. She had 16 children in this palace. One of them was Marie Antoinette, who would become Queen of France. The connections of empire. Walking through Schönbrunn, you feel the weight of power, the resources required, the ego, but also the loss. The empire is gone, the palace remains. The Danube River flows through Vienna, the Danube, wide and powerful. Unlike the Moldau in Prague, unlike the Weichsel in Warsaw, where this river is major, connects 3 countries. The Danube defines Vienna's geography. The city sits on its banks, depends on it, is shaped by it. Bridges span the river everywhere, the Kettelbrücke, the Marienbrücke, the Schwarzenbergbrücke. Walking across the bridges you see the entire city, the old center, the modern developments. The river flows regardless. For millions of years before humans, it flowed the same way. It will continue after. The river is a constant. The Musik Verein building is gold. Literally, gold-colored. The Musikvereinsgebäude, home to the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, the most famous concert hall in the world. The New Year's concert happens here, every January 1st, watched by millions. It's a tradition, an institution. Walking past the Musikverein, you feel the cultural weight. This is where serious music happens. The Staatsoper, the State Opera House, is nearby. The Vienna State Opera, one of the greatest opera houses in the world, built in the 1860s, destroyed in World War II, rebuilt in 1955. The rebuilding was a priority. That shows what Vienna values: music, culture, opera, not just economic power, not military might, but art. Mozart lived here, Beethoven lived here, Brahms, Strauss. The musicians came to Vienna because Vienna valued music. Composers competed, created, pushed each other. That intellectual tradition is still present. You see it in the bookstores, the cafes where people discuss ideas, the young people studying in squares, the sense that knowledge matters here, that thinking matters. Walking through Vienna, you're walking through layers of musical history. Roman foundations, medieval streets, Renaissance buildings, 18th century expansions, 19th century monuments. The coffee houses are where Vienna thinks: Café Sperl, Café Central, Café Schwarzenberg. Established in the 1800s, still operating, still the same. People sit for hours, drinking coffee, reading newspapers, discussing, thinking. This is Viennese culture, not rushing, not consuming, but being. The ritual of the coffee house is serious. The coffee itself is art. The mélange, the Einspanner, the fiaker. Different coffees, different preparations, different histories. Each one tells a story. The pastries are remarkable. Strudel, Sacher-Torte, Apfelstrudel. Made according to recipes that haven't changed in 100 years. The Naschmarkt is where Vienna buys food. Fresh vegetables, meat, fish, spices. Vendors who know their craft, who understand quality. The market has been here for centuries. It's where locals come, not tourists usually. You see real Vienna there, real daily life. At night, especially Friday and Saturday, the Naschmarkt transforms. The market stalls close, the restaurants open, bars, music venues. People gather to eat and drink and socialize. The market becomes a party. That duality is Vienna. By day, it's functional. By night, it's festive. The Augarten is a baroque garden on the northern edge of Vienna, one of the oldest parks in Europe, established in the 1600s. When Vienna was still an empire, the garden is formal, precise. But in the middle of this baroque garden stand structures that don't belong. The Flaktürme, the anti-aircraft towers built by the Nazis during World War II. Massive, concrete, brutal. They rise up from the manicured lawns like monuments to destruction, like scars. After the war, Vienna faced a choice: destroy the towers or keep them. Vienna chose to keep them, to remember what happened, not to hide it. In the center stands the Augarten porcelain manufactory, founded in 1718, one of the oldest porcelain factories in the world, still producing porcelain, still using traditional techniques. The factory refuses to industrialize completely. That's Vienna, maintaining tradition even when it costs more. The museums of Vienna are institutions, not just buildings, institutions. The Kunsthistorisches Museum, the Museum of Art History, built in the 1800s, contains the collections of the Habsburgs, art from across Europe, paintings by Rubens, Bruegel, Vermeer. The Naturhistorisches Museum sits next to it, almost identical building. The two museums face each other across a plaza: culture and nature, art and science, both valued equally. Inside these museums you can spend entire days, room after room of beauty. The Belvedere Palace contains the Austrian Gallery, Gustav Klimt paintings, The Kiss. Standing in front of Klimt's paintings is like encountering pure beauty. Gold leaf, intricate detail, sensuality. The paintings glow. The Leopold Museum focuses on Austrian modernism, Egon Schiele, Oskar Kokoschka, artists who pushed boundaries. The Secession Building is its own museum, built by Gustav Klimt and Josef Hoffmann. It's a rebellion against tradition. What makes Vienna profound is that it's learned to accept loss. The empire is gone, but Vienna continues. It doesn't pretend nothing happened. It remembers, but it also moves forward. It plays music, it drinks coffee, it maintains its culture. That's the Viennese way. Not nostalgia, not despair, but continuity. That's Vienna. That's what makes it real.
Vienna has layers of history that most tourists never encounter. Beyond the famous palaces and concert halls is a city that has been tested and transformed repeatedly. The Turks came here twice, in 1529 and again in 1683. The Ottoman siege of 1683 is when Vienna faced its greatest threat. The city was surrounded, weeks of fighting, the food was running out, the people were starving. But Vienna held. The siege was broken by Polish cavalry arriving from the north. King Jan Sobieski and his Polish-winged hussars charged into battle. It became legendary. The Viennese celebrate this moment still. The crescent on Turkish flags inspired the crescent shape of the Kipferl pastry, later known as the croissant. At least that's what Viennese like to say. Whether it's true or not is debated by historians, but the story has power. The story says, we survived. We even took their symbol and made it into our breakfast pastry. That's Vienna. The Turkish sieges shaped Vienna's identity. They made Vienna see itself as the defender of Christian Europe against invasion. That sense of being besieged, of being on the edge, persists in Vienna's culture even now, even though the threat has been gone for 300 years. Vienna knows what it means to be threatened, to be occupied, to have to rebuild. These experiences create a particular kind of resilience, a particular kind of dark humor, a particular relationship with tradition. The food culture is shaped by this history. The Wiener Schnitzel, the breaded veal cutlet, didn't originate in Vienna. It came from Milan, from Italy. But Vienna adopted it and made it their own. That's typical. Vienna takes things from elsewhere and makes them Viennese. The goulash is Hungarian, but you eat it in Vienna and it tastes different somehow. More refined, more carefully prepared. The Viennese add their own precision to Hungarian peasant food. The wurst, the sausages, are incredible. There are specialty butchers who make only sausages. Their families have been making the same recipes for generations, not written down, just passed down through practice and taste and memory. You buy a Bosna, a spicy sausage with onions and mustard, from a street vendor and understand Vienna better than from any museum. The coffee culture reveals Vienna's sophistication. The mélange is not just coffee and milk, it's a specific ratio, a specific preparation. It has been the same since the 1800s. The Einspanner is coffee with whipped cream, named after the single-horse carriages, Einspanner, because the coachman needed one hand free to hold the reins, so they drank coffee with whipped cream on top. The fiacre is named after the horse-drawn taxis. Every coffee has a story. Every preparation has history. This is not accident. This is intention. This is Vienna saying, we care about how things are done. We care about the ritual. We care about tradition. The pastries are elevated to an art form. The Sacher Torte from the Hotel Sacher is a chocolate cake with apricot jam and chocolate icing. It exists. It's famous. People come to Vienna to eat it. But more than that, it represents something about Vienna. That a cake can be so carefully made, so precisely executed, that it becomes iconic. That tradition can continue through food. The bakeries of Vienna are temples. Florian on Graben Street has been making the same pastries for over 100 years. You buy a slice of apple strudel and it tastes like Vienna's history. The Naschmarkt operates even on Sundays, which is remarkable in Vienna, where most things close on Sundays. It's where you see real Vienna, real daily life. Immigrant communities buy their vegetables from their own countries. Indians buying Indian spices, Turks buying Turkish produce, Poles buying Polish goods. Vienna is more diverse than it appears. The diversity is concentrated in the markets, the street level, the places tourists don't usually go. In the markets you see Vienna's real identity, not the imperial identity, but the working class identity, the immigrant identity, the practical identity of people who need to eat and work and live. The wine culture is important to understanding Vienna. Viennese wine is light, crisp, often white, made in vineyards that surround Vienna. The Grüne Veltliner is the classic, drunk in the Weinstubes, the wine taverns where people come to drink and eat and socialize. The wine is meant to be drunk fresh, not aged for decades like Bordeaux, not prestigious like Burgundy, just good, honest, made to be enjoyed. The Gemischte Satz, the mixed plantings, are unique to Vienna. Multiple grape varieties planted together in the same vineyard, mixed on purpose. You can't find this anywhere else in the world exactly like Vienna does it. The wine reflects Vienna's pragmatism. Why plant one type of grape when you can plant many? Why specialize when you can diversify? The museums extend beyond the major ones. The Secession Building has its own collection. The Vienna Museum shows the actual history of the city, not just the imperial history. The Freud Museum is in the apartment where Sigmund Freud lived and worked. You can see his office, his couch, the place where he thought about the human mind. That Vienna produced Freud is not accident. Vienna's culture of analysis, of questioning, of psychology runs deep. The Third Man Museum is about the famous film set in post-war Vienna. The Hundertwasser Museum focuses on the artist whose buildings look like they're melting. This is Vienna, a city diverse enough to have museums about everything, about psychology, about artists,